What's up, guys? Joshua Six Up Tabletop doing a new video with alongside the launch of Bolt Action 3rd edition, painting up some Hungarian Army weapons teams. This is kind of my paint tutorial. As you can see, this is the model's zenithal highlighted, spray painted black with white on top. First color I get into is German Field Gray World War II by Vallejo Model Color. I thin that down with a little bit of water with my palette, and this will be applied to all the uniforms. So it's a primary color. Something interesting I read when trying to figure out what color I wanted for the Hungarian military dress at that time. There's a commenter, I don't know if it was Reddit or another thread, that basically said your Hungarian uniforms will either come out green, brown, or they will come out brown green. So it's somewhere in the middle, which is probably the actual color. But for what I'm doing here for this, it's probably going to turn out a little bit more green brown with a little bit more emphasis on the green. But so there's many different ways to do it, but just note with the scheme, it skews a little bit more towards the green, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, as towards 1944, getting towards the end of the war, the uniforms were a little all over the place too in terms of color. Second color we're using, Vallejo Model Color Black, and this will be used mostly to paint boots and to get a base coat down over anything that will be metallics. Jumping right along, again sticking with the model color series from Vallejo, we'll be using khaki, and that will be used on the satchels. You can see I'm painting here, and that will also be used on the different straps, for the backpacks, for the equipment, anything used on the uniform as well. As you can see, it be painting the thin lines, so that it looks nice on the uniform, and it stands out quite nicely as well. It kind of has that skew of khaki, where it has that brown mixed in, so it works really well with the uniform, as well as the leg wrappings, and this is on the flamethrower unit. Now, not all of the models have this, but anywhere that they have pouches, additional pouches, ammo pouches on these models, I use the Citadel Contrast paint, Gargrax Sewer, I think. I don't use a lot of contrast paints when I paint, but there are a couple I do use. Speaking of that, we got Contrast Wildwood. I use that painting, as the name suggests, anything wood. Kind of been my go-to. You thin it with a little bit of water, and if you put it over the zenithal highlight, it creates a nice blend with the white when the colors go over it, and I think it has a really awesome wood effect. So it's just been something I've been using for a while. Moving forward, working on the green. This is the primary green that will be used as for the painted metals. So a canister in the back, as well as the helmets used on the infantry, are all that nice green, and that is a mix of Citadel Sons of Horus green, and I mix a little bit of Camo olive green from Vallejo Model Color. Moving along, there's part of the video that I did miss filming, but I use Games Workshop's like early Cadian Flesh Tone, Bugman's Glow, that kind of recipe. If you're unfamiliar with it, the base is Bugman's Glow, and then you use Reikland Flesh Shade as a wash. Once that's dry, then you highlight it with the layer Cadian Flesh Tone paint, and then the highest layer is Kislev Flesh. just know it's important to remember just to take time with this process. It does take a lot of tight brush control to paint the hands and stuff. But I think for what my goal was here, I think the highlighting process, especially on metals, as these models are made out of metal. I think metal has a lot of 3D features to it that could be highlighted pretty well by this easy skin recipe. Up next, there's a couple different leathers that I like, but sticking with the Vallejo model color line, I have leather brown, pretty standard paint, speaks for itself. Covering the strap here for the gun, as well as a couple of the models in this kit had some belts and other leather bits here and there. So just take your time as you see them on different models. Just be careful to grab those, be careful with the brush, and don't forget the chin straps. I use the same leather for the chin straps on the models for the helmets. Breaking into the metallics, pretty standard use, and I go to AK Interactive, the gunmetal to paint out the guns. A couple models have some buttons and various other metal bits on them that I use. So I try to keep the camera focused. The model jumped out a little bit there, but it's all right. Yep, painting the metal bits, the buttons I mentioned, some of the canteens I painted in metal, and I'm really happy with this metal color, and it's pretty much a nice go-to in my collection. So I want to do something a little bit special for the flamethrower guy. He has a camo, at least the art on the website showed it, that he had a camo helmet. So we're using Iraqi sand from Vallejo Model Color to create the first couple squiggles in khaki, and then I use Hall Red. I think this is a perfect red color for the Hungarians. In their camouflage patterns, that this red comes up pretty often. So I'm happy to have that red, and I think it's a perfect red for the recipe, and I'm really happy with how like the basic khaki scheme turns out. Next, for chipping and damage, we use basically my go-to paint, scale color from their artist line, Burnt Umber. This is a relatively expensive paint, but the artist line, I think, it's an awesome paint. As you can see, I have just like a cheap loose brush. I dot it into the paint and kind of wipe it off a little bit, and then just dot it and dash it all around the different metal parts where there'd be some rust or corrosion or things that can happen there. And then for my wet palette, I grab that gunmetal. Then anywhere where, not everywhere, but in most places where we added that burnt umber, just do a little dash of metal to where the paint or the metal of the helmet and the Panzerfaust or anything like that have been chipped just due to the uses of war or wear and tear, so I wanted to incorporate that. Next, and kind of getting to the end of it here, we'll be mixing a little bit of US olive drab and with a little bit of Iraqi sand, and that will be used kind of as I mix this with quite a bit of water. This is just a lighter coat on top of that field gray that we put down. I felt like that was maybe a little too dark compared to what I saw as for the Hungarian uniform. So I wanted to add a little bit more of that like khaki, kind of have it like wash in, kind of create like contrasting, like a higher and a lower value. So as you can see there, you still have the undercoat, but also kind of has a mixed feel to it, and I feel like that overall gives it, I think, a more realistic look. And then on the shirt, to show as their ranks, or they're part of the Hungarian Army, they have the very iconic like green lapel type of thing. And with that, I used Waflesh from Citadel. And there we have it. These are the base coats all done on the models. You can use browns, grays, anything like that to add mustaches, and any of the models that have that. Same scheme used for all of them. Next, we're going to add a little bit of weathering, continue the weathering with a enamel wash. This is a AK Interactive Streaking Grime. It's used in a lot of, coming from Warhammer and other things, a lot of grim, dark painting recipes use this, but I mean, it works. It's a go-to for a reason. So yeah, we apply the enamel wash with just an old brush, and since it is enamel, I need a sponge. So I use a makeup sponge, dipped with a little bit of mineral spirits, and about after an hour of just the enamel paint sitting on it, I take the brush and just pat it over the surface of the model, so it leaves a little bit of that wash in the recesses and cleans up the surface. And then after a final spray with some varnish, the models are complete. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Really looking forward to trying my hand at painting some more Hungarians. And yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. So this is Josh with 6 Up Tabletop. Have a good one.